All right, this is going to be a quick overview of the difference between self-concept and self-esteem and some of the theories that explain how these two ideas interact with each other. Your textbook goes back and forth between these two terms a lot, so I just want to make sure there's no confusion. So the easiest way to remember this is self-concept starts with a C, concept. Remember cognitive. Self-esteem starts with an E. Remember emotional, okay? Self-concept, cognitive, self-esteem, emotional. What I mean by that is self-concept tends to be a more cognitive, factual, perceptual evaluation of who you feel like you are. Whereas self-esteem is that more emotional evaluation of what is my value. So I'll elaborate on this. So within self-concept, like I said, this does tend to be um, a more cognitive appraisal, your thoughts, your beliefs about who you are and about what pieces of yourself you consider to be important in your identity. Self-concept is someone saying, tell me about yourself. Tell me about your skills. Tell me about your personality, right? It's this appraisal of yourself. It can include evaluations, but it's mostly focused on a descriptive, broad view evaluation of who you are. Maybe you mention your identity. Maybe you mention your social roles. Maybe you mention your personality traits, your physical characteristics, your strengths, your interests, things of that nature. Self-concept is often influenced by social comparisons. We draw information about what it is that we're good at versus not so good at versus how we see other people performing. I cannot speak today. Versus how we see other people performing. Or we also maybe make evaluations of maybe I decide how talkative of a person I think I am versus how frequently I talk compared to my other friends in my friend group or my family members at family get-togethers. How shy I am as a comparison to other people, right? So a lot of our self-concept comes from observations and comparisons, and also the reflective appraisal from others. You realize that you are a skilled writer because a teacher told you you're a good writer. You realize you're a good artist because an art teacher told you you're a good artist. So the internalization of these appraisals from others about what is your personality like, what are your strengths. So this can include assessments of how well you can perform on tasks. But remember, for self-concept, it's keeping cognitive. So it's more of a factual evaluation of, I think I can do good at this, or I don't think this is a skill that I have. Okay. So again, shaped by observations and by experiences. But then we shift gears, and your self-esteem is more of that emotional. Remember, self-esteem, emotional. It's this more emotional evaluation of how you feel about yourself and how much value you think you have. Self-esteem focuses more on that emotional appraisal of your own worth. How do you feel about yourself? What is your worth? And this tends to skew positive or negative. And we're going to talk about how this changes throughout childhood in a later lecture. Um, but it's a perception of your own value. Do you have a level of satisfaction? Do you have a level of pride about who you are? Again, going back to those emotional terms, right? Am I happy with myself? Am I proud of myself? This is much more highly influenced by our successes and failures. And this can actually also be really strongly influenced by how much of a sense of control we feel like we have over situations, and it can be influenced by relationships. Um, so, one thing that we see in the bridge between self concept and self esteem is at some point, those negative appraisals of self concepts, if you start piling this laundry list of things that your self concept feels like, sorry about that. If you start stockpiling this laundry list of things that your self concept feels like, I'm not good at this, and it's this big long list, the idea is eventually that can bleed over into your self esteem. But they stay separated in that the self concept is the cognitive appraisal, the self esteem is the emotional appraisal. But the two things are related because our self concept does influence our development of self esteem. If all of your self evaluations are, I'm not good at this, or I failed at this, that's going to influence your self-esteem. If you feel like it's pretty balanced of, yeah, I have things I'm bad at, but I have things that I'm good at, that's going to lead to a more balanced self-esteem. This is part of why there is so much concern over the trophy culture, right? That all kids get trophies, all kids get medals. Because one thing that's important in this relationship of going from self-concept to self-esteem is that kids need to learn how to fail. Kids need to learn how to not be good at something. Kids need to learn how to have that experience of, I tried this, but I wasn't good at it, and that's okay. I have other things that I'm good at. If children are handled in such a way where they're made to believe that they are good at everything that they do all the time, once they get older and actually start failing at things, it's going to create a much bigger blow to their self-esteem because they haven't learned how to handle that. So it's important for children to be given opportunities where they can experience failure safely, where they can experience a self-evaluation of, wow, I really wasn't very good at that, but that's okay, where they can experience that safely and where they have somebody to talk them through that. So the last thing we're going to talk about is 3 theories that discuss this interaction between self-concept and self-esteem. The first one is social comparison theory. The social comparison theory is exactly what it sounds like, and we've applied it to other things this semester. And that is that we define our self-concept through comparisons with other people. We're looking at other people, we're looking at their performance, at their features, at whatever, and we're comparing that to ourselves. Okay? So we're evaluating, how good am I at this? How do I look? How do I act in comparison to this other person? But then self-esteem is determined by that emotion of, how favorable is that to me? So consistently upward social comparisons, meaning if I'm cognitively, for my self-concept, making social comparisons of, all these people around me are better than me in all of these ways, that can start to diminish self-esteem. But consistently downward comparisons, where you're looking around and you can say consistently, I can point out things where if I compare myself to other people, I can see, okay, I do have a skill in that. I am good at this. I did perform higher than average on this. That can enhance self-esteem. This is one of the concerns with influencer culture, with social media culture, right? We are giving adolescents and young adults thousands of people that they can look at every day to make social comparisons to. And because of the fake nature of social media, this often results in an upward social comparison of the person who's consuming it, looking at it and saying, here are all these ways where I am in some way less than this person that I'm observing. And I'm seeing influencer after influencer after influencer. So that's the social comparison theory, that things are coming from comparisons with other people. The self-discrepancy theory is the idea that self-concept is representing different domains of your identity and different evaluations of your actual self. Okay, so it's your cognitive evaluation. What is my actual self? What is my skill set? What is my description? But self-esteem is the mismatch between my ideal self and my actual self. So self-discrepancy theory would say, if my self-concept, if my self-evaluation, my actual self is pretty on point with my ideal self, I'm probably going to have a pretty healthy self-esteem level. But if my self-evaluation of myself is down here and my ideal self is up here, I'm probably going to experience some issues with self-esteem. There's probably going to be lowered self-esteem, and there's probably going to be a bit of emotional distress that goes along with that too. And then the last theory is the self-expansion model. And this is saying that so it's saying that both self-concept and self-esteem are expanded by experiences. That self-concept, we're going to develop new identities. We're going to refine our identities based on our knowledge base and based on our experience. Take a psychology of personality theory class, and you'll gain all kinds of new knowledge for how to describe yourself and your self-concept. And then as we try new experiences and learn things we're good at and not good at and enjoy and don't enjoy, that's going to expand our self-concept. An interesting part of the self-expansion model, though, says that self-esteem, a lot of times the best way to increase that is to expand meaningful relationships with other people that can give us some rewards and validation. Going back to the example of kids needing a safe place to fail, it's the way we define them having that safe place to fail is that they have a meaningful relationship where they're getting validation, ideally from their parents, from their coaches, from whoever it might be, but they're getting validation even though a task might not have gone the way they wanted. So self-expansion model really hits on this point that your self-esteem is going to be most meaningfully expanded by having those quality relationships that are offering validation. So that's been a quick review of the difference between self-concept and self-esteem, and then how those three theories see each one. And next time what we're going to talk about is how self-concept and self-esteem tends to change at different points in childhood and in adolescence.